Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Great. It's great to hear your voice, Dr. Shealy. Let me give out some phone numbers. Class, if you'd like to call in, we'll pay for the call. And the number is 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running, 605-477-3249. I know Alex is engineering the broadcast, and Dr. Shealy, Alex is trying to connect with Gwyneth Isaacs in Australia. She's a USA Prepares instructor, and she has some medical questions, I believe, about her son who experienced an event in the last couple of days. So she'd like to chat with you on air about this, and I'm looking at the call screen. I don't see her being connected yet, but Alex is feverishly trying to make that happen. So in the meantime, Dr. Shealy, is there anything that you'd like to share with us?
Open sesame.
Okay, very good. All right, okay, here she is. Here's Gwyneth. Gwyneth Isaacs, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Hi, this is Gwyneth speaking. I was just going to get GCN to call me back.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
That'd be great.
I will make that happen, Gwyneth. And
Okay.
I know Alex is trying to reach you. I have a feeling your line was busy. So let me disconnect, and we'll have you call right back, okay? Or have him.
Okay,
We'll have him call you.
you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to reconnect with Gwyneth in just a minute. Dr. Shealy, is there anything that has surprised you with, let's say, patients that you've seen coming in that just kind of different? Maybe their attitude's different, maybe their intentions are different, or is it unchanged?
Well, they're all over the place, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all my patients practically have already flunked conventional medicine. They don't come here until they've failed whatever conventional medicine has to offer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, some of them are really wonderfully eager and ready to take on the alternatives, and some of them are still addicted to some of the problems they have. I've just looked up over the weekend a wonderful book published just 3-4 years ago on addiction. And the author says at any one time, 50% of Americans are addicted to one thing or another. Now, that means there's a lot of overlap because addiction is a broad field. And the one that I find most interesting of all is the addiction to food. It is a common call. Now, according to this guy, 10% of Americans 18 years and older are addicted to alcohol. 25% or more of those who are obese are addicted to food. 8% of 18-year-olds and up to 5% of 50-year-olds are addicted to illegal, illicit drugs. 2% of adults and probably 40% of teenagers are addicted to the internet. 3 to 6% of adults addicted to love and sex. 7% of 18-year-olds and 2% of 50-year-olds addicted to marijuana. 6% of adults are addicted to shopping. 10% of adults to workaholism. But at any one time, 50% of the population suffers one or more addictions. That's by Dr. Sussman, SUSSMAN, Substance and Behavioral Addictions, Concepts, Causes, and Cures, published in 2017.
It's stunning. It's stunning because when you think about that, you think about that person serving your food, that person doing your dental hygiene treatment.
Yeah.
I remember, Dr. Shealy, when we lived in Virginia decades ago. I was in the dental chair, and the dentist, for the first time, put on a mask. And he had glasses on, safety glasses, a mask, and he had gloves on. And I said, hold it. I don't have AIDS. Do you? Do you have AIDS?
Oh, Ben, I love you.
well, I was serious, Dr. Shealy, because he was ready for germ warfare, and of course it concerns me, and I think I was his first patient to challenge him with that, because before that you didn't see dentists wearing protective garb, if you will, but after the AIDS epidemic took foothold with the dental village, then you started seeing that. Okay. Alex, do we have Gwyneth Isaacs? No, can you call her, please? You've called her 10 times? Okay. If you could keep trying, I'd appreciate that, and just let me know in the stack what the status is. Dr. Shealy, you have mentioned in the past many times castor oil for cataracts.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that you were going to do it too. Have you seen results? Have you tried it yet?
As far as I can tell, I've been doing it over 9 months, and they're gone.
Okay. So you're 100% convinced that it works, yes?
I'm 120% convinced.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to weigh in. I wanted to ask you in an unbiased way what your reaction was. So I have done it, and I'm on my third day. First day, and this is castor oil USP, US Pharmacopoeia. 1 drop in each eye. Before bedtime, I lie down with a glass eyedropper, and I try to position 1 drop in the corner of my eye, because otherwise it'll land on my eyelashes as I close my eyes, and it's kind of a sticky, gooey stuff. It's clear. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant to try to do it, but once it's in your eye, it's no big deal. I have to tell you, first day, I could not believe the results. Impressive. Second day, more results. Third day, more results. Absolutely impressive. So, does that sync with what your experience was when you first tried it, day 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I can't say that I call it unequivocal results. I think it clears the vision in many respects.
That is my experience. It clears the vision. Absolutely. Not only does it clear the vision, I believe that I am getting more light into my eyes. I really believe that as well.
Yeah,
and Yes?
I would agree. In my opinion, everybody not later than age 50 would do well to do this and put the ophthalmologist out of business for cataract removals.
I can't understand. I flat out cannot understand. I had, gone to the eye doctor, a few times in my life, not too often, a few times. No one has said to me, yo, Vin, here's what you ought to do. Nobody. Just you. You're the only one, Dr. Shealy. And it's inexpensive. I can't imagine having cataract surgery compared to this. There's nothing to this. Class, literally, and I'm not exaggerating. And Dr. Shealy, please correct me if I'm doing this wrong. All I do is take this eyedropper, and I only load it with maybe 3 drops. 1 in case I miss. Glass eyedropper. clean eyedropper. I withdraw 3 drops worth into the glass cylinder of the eyedropper. I don't let it touch any of the rubber parts. I only want it to touch the glass. I lie down, look up, and aim for the corner of my eye, the inside corner. It lands in my eye. I blink a few times, and then I do the other eye, and then I look all around with my eyes open. I look extreme left, extreme right, up, down, to make sure it coats the entire surface of my eye, and then I close my eyes and go to sleep. It's as simple as that. Is that the correct procedure, Dr. Shealy?
It sounds like an accomplished procedure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and well, so that's what I do. And class, you may want to try this yourself. Look it up first so that you have some more information in front of you. But I have read that only use organic castor oil. I asked Dr. Shealy about that, and he said that U.S. Pharmacopoeia, USP, is fine. That's what I used because actually, flat out, I don't believe that organic really means much because there's so much lying and cheating involving the word organic. So I really don't know what it means. So what we've done is just gotten castor oil, USP, the kind that you can buy at your local drugstore or the Chinese factory outlet. Okay, another question I had for you, Dr. Shealy, hydration versus blood pressure. Is there a link between being dehydrated and having high blood pressure?
Yes.
Okay.
Clear.
And, I've noticed at the end of the day, after a hard day of farming, I'm exhausted, and I'll check my blood pressure, and it'll be elevated. And I will slam down some water, filtered ProPure water, sometimes a little bit of Gatorade, and I'll notice that within 20 minutes, my blood pressure comes down to absolutely normal.
Now, I want to make a suggestion, Pat.
Yes.
Carry a quart of water with you on the tractor.
Well, I do. I literally do. I carry a couple 16-ounce bottles of water, literally, and I have a, right next to my seat, I have a 30 caliber ammo can, and it's it's for war and carrying cartridges to the battlefield and so forth, and I have that bolted to the tractor fender, and I can close it and keep the water out. But what I do is bring that with me, and I put the water in there, and off I go. And I try to do that. I try to drink a lot of fluids while I'm on the tractor. Gwyneth Isaacs, welcome.
Hello, Vincent. How
Gwyneth,
are you this morning?
Did it work? I know Alex was trying to reach you at least 10 times.
Well, he's had trouble contacting me, but maybe it's the mobile phone network, or maybe it's somebody trying to interfere again. I don't know.
Okay, so you've
but
got.
Anyway,
all right, we're going into a break. I can't do anything about that. But when we come back, we'll have your questions answered with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Okay, thank you.
One of Dr. Shealy's longest consultations via the telephone is Gwyneth Isaacs in Australia. Gwyneth, you're on with Dr. Shealy.
Hello, Dr. Shealy. How are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm okay, but my son Theo over the weekend had a grand mal epileptic seizure. And he's had maybe 3 of them over the last 3 years. And I'm a little bit concerned about him. And I am going to take him to get checked out by a doctor locally. But I was wondering if I could have your comment on that to start with.
Okay, now, the important thing is, I presume, has he been on medication?
He hasn't been on any medication.
Oh, okay.
The seizures are that infrequent. We thought that probably and this is, like I said, only the third one he's ever had.
Right.
And,
how old is he?
I thought that he's 16.
And how much
So
does he
he
weigh,
thought
roughly?
Gosh, he would weigh probably around about 60 kilos, 55 to 60 kilos.
Okay.
So, and he's about 5'11".
I would put him
So
on,
thin.
at the top of my list, would be magnesium lotion.
Okay.
2 teaspoons twice a day. And the amino acid L-taurine, Taurine. And I think he ought to be on 4,000. I would give him 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 milligrams roughly in the middle of the day, and 2,000 at bedtime.
2,000 at bedtime. Okay.
In general, that works very well for people who've had seizures and not responded to medication. In fact, I even have a 2-year-old on it. Not that much, not that big a dose, of course. But I had a 2-year-old who was totally uncontrolled with huge dose of medication, and it's brought her seizures under control.
Yeah, because I wasn't wanting to put him on prescription anti-seizure drugs because they can have very severe side effects from what I've heard.
Right. Well, I definitely would try the magnesium lotion and the taurine.
Okay, the magnesium lotion, how do I apply that? Or how does he apply that?
He applied it. I would say you pour 1 teaspoon into each hand, one at a time, and rub it on your buttocks. 1 teaspoon on the right hand on the right buttocks, 1 teaspoon on the left hand on the left buttocks.
Okay, so he rubs it on his rear end.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yep. So it's magnesium lotion, and I should be able to get those from a pharmacy or a health food shop?
Well, I have no idea. In this country, I'm the one who created the idea of magnesium as a lotion. And so I make it. We have it made right on my farm. And just be sure that it's got, check the label. You want to be getting about 400 milligrams a day of the magnesium, and it needs to be.
What about Epsom salt bath?
Not good enough.
Not good enough. Okay.
No, it's about half as good. You need twice as much to make it work, and you can't make a lotion out of it very well. Magnesium chloride is much better than magnesium sulfate.
Okay. Yep. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you very much for that. It's L-taurine supplement.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And that's about 4,000 milligrams a day.
Right.
In 3 doses. Okay. Thank you so much for that because I was really quite worried about him.
Do please, keep in touch and let me know how it works.
I will. Yeah. And the other thing I was wanting to talk about, which is actually what I initially emailed Vincent about last week before all of this happened, is past. Oh, I can hear music again. So
yeah, we're going into another break. Did you want to hold through it, Gwyneth?
Yeah, I'll hold, thanks.
Sure. All right, we'll be right back. Dr. Gwyneth Isaacs, live in Australia. Gwyneth, please continue.
Okay. What I was wanting to ask Dr. Shealy, as well as that, is about past life wounds and injuries and the ethereal body. And last week, this was very interesting. This was actually prompted by a conversation with Vincent Finelli last week about phantom limbs. And I'm very much aware that we are, what I say is that we're all ghosts walking around in physical bodies. And that when we die, when we depart this mortal plane, all that we do is we shed our physical form. And I'm not trained as a medical doctor in this life. I was in a previous life, but I'm trained as a psychic in this life. And that's as far as I've been able to figure it out of what our true forms are. But in one of my past lives, I was a notorious highwaywoman, a bandit by the name of Lady Catherine Ferrers. And as the story goes, in that life I was shot to death one evening while trying to rob a bullock wagon. And I actually have a bullet wound-shaped scar or birthmark on my back. And I have a condition as well called non-alcoholic fatty liver disorder, despite the fact that I've never been a drug user, never been an alcoholic, and I've never been overweight. And yet I've got fatty liver disorder, which I think is really, really interesting. And would it be possible that would be a past life scar?
Absolutely. It's not uncommon for birthmarks of all kinds and scars of all kinds to represent something, what I call unfinished business from a previous life. So to me, it's okay to know about a previous life, but what you want to be sure of, have you forgiven or gotten rid of any anger, guilt, anxiety, or depression over that life? In other words, if when you die, you have anger, guilt, anxiety, or depression over anything, it can carry through into future lives.
Yeah, I would definitely agree there. One thing that I've found out about Lady Catherine from doing this research is she had a big time grudge against the blue team. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to shake that. I've tried my best to be a good girl. I really have. I've given, in this life, one reason why I had to get sent back to this earth was I had to give my life to Jesus Christ so that my sins could be paid for, because there were rather a lot of them in the Lady Catherine life, and also in in all of them. I was, in every past life that I've been able to track, I was always a bandit of some description or other. In another past life, I was a pirate by the name of George Wilson, who was Bartholomew Roberts' mate-lot, and my husband was Bartholomew Roberts. And he was very fond during his life of telling people that he was the teetotaling pirate king. And neither of us knew anything about pirate history. And it was only after he died that I began to research what the teetotaling pirate, or who the teetotaling pirate king was. And I came across Bartholomew Roberts, and it's very interesting because actually his middle name was Robertson. That was his middle name, and also it was his mother's maiden name as well. So that was quite interesting. But that's something that I mean, I think that dispute with the blue team might actually have a deeper purpose, because some conflicts need to be fought, because the blue team in our day certainly is tremendously corrupt, and certainly they're really, really corrupt around here locally, and they need for somebody to, as legally and lawfully as possible, stand up to them. And around here, that's been my role since I've come here. And I didn't ask for this trouble. They confronted me, So I think that it's really interesting that you say that. But Lady Catherine at one stage actually killed a constable. And, that was something.
I have done hundreds of past life therapy sessions. And as far as I can tell, they all are related to something, that recurs in this life.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if you were to look at there's one portrait of Lady Catherine that's verified, and if you look at a portrait, I know that Vincent has. I might email the portrait to you, and you look at it, and there's another one that probably is her. And if you look at these portraits of her, and then you look at a portrait of me, it's like you're looking at the same person pretty well. And that's another thing I know that carries across from one lifetime to another, is physical appearance as well. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And but it's been quite an adventure, going into this area of my history again. And I've known about the George Wilson life since before my younger son was born, but not by name. I've known who he was since just after my husband died in 2003. And it's actually something else quite interesting, because he was, the history books say that he died of a novel distemper off the coast of Africa, something that he picked up in a African dungeon. And I've always had problems with my blood, and that's once again with my liver, and as well as that with my lungs and mucus discharges. And, from what I can remember, because I used to have nightmares when I was a little girl of being plunged into a terrible dark void with tremendous pressure and darkness enveloping, and knowing that this was the end, and then waking up. And I couldn't understand that. And then when I prayed and I went back and realized what had happened, to that place to see what had actually happened, I saw that I wasn't dead when they threw my body overboard from the ship, and that they knew that I wasn't dead. And they basically murdered me because I would have had a claim to a legal, lawful claim to half of Bartholomew Roberts' treasure, which would have been around about 80,000 ounces of gold dust to start with. That's not even counting any of the other gems, which is a lot of gold.
Even today, that's a lot of gold.
Yeah, it's a lot of gold. 80, and that was only my half, because I was his mate lot. I had a contract with him in that life, where if he died, half of everything that he had would revert to me. And in those days, those contracts, even among pirates, were recognized by the law courts. And there were precedents for pirates getting paid out for their share after they were acquitted. And but it's interesting, because the fellow who shot Bartholomew Roberts was a fellow by the name of Shalona Ogle, and in this life there was a fellow by the name of Mick Gatto, and he's quite a famous Melbourne gangster, and he's the absolute spitting image of Shalona Ogle. And he once tried to kill Archie by shooting him with a shotgun, but for whatever reason he missed. Maybe he was a bit drunk, maybe he was a bit out of range. Archie was on the side of a wheat silo at the time, so probably he was a bit out of range. But he had a friend with him, and Gatto also tried to kill his friend. My husband was a gangster, by the way. So that was the beef that Mick Gatto had with him. Was actually he was destroying Mick Gatto's drug trade at the time, because he had a mission to get people off of drugs. And Mick Gatto was he had business ventures, let's just say. I don't want to say anything maybe on air, but he had business ventures going at the time. And Archie's activities were interfering with them. And the reason why Shalona Ogle killed Bartholomew Roberts was because Bartholomew Roberts shut down the international slave trade off the coast of equatorial Africa through his piracy. So it's been quite an adventure learning about all of this. But yeah, that's something I suspected that. And the only other thing I could possibly think would have caused this extensive liver scarring was when I was about 22 or 23 years old, I did have glandular fever. But I don't think that glandular fever could cause liver scarring of that magnitude.
Well, it is, I guess, part of every life lesson.
What was that, sorry?
Unfinished business is part of every life lesson.
Yeah. So it could be a combination of the factors.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But the liver weakness came from the liver scarring and the past life effects and the weakness in the blood. And, you know, when I gave birth to Theo, I almost bled to death. So, you know, that caused a further weakening of the blood, and it's all interlinked, is basically what you're saying there.
Okay, Gwyneth, anything else?
No, that's fine. Yep. Okay, it's been great talking to you, Dr. Shealy.
Well, thank you, and do keep in touch.
Okay, I certainly will, and I'll let you know how it goes with Theo. And that's Altorin, 4,000 milligrams a day.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much for that. God bless you, and you have a great day.
And blessings to you.
Gwyneth,
Okay.
thank you so much.
See you later then.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Sure. I'll see you Wednesday. That was Gwyneth Isaacs live in Australia. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, medical doctor. And Dr. Shealy, for your information, and for those who are new to the class, Gwyneth Isaacs is a USA Prepares instructor. She's been with us for years, and she is on every Wednesday with us for 2 hours. And she is a degreed scientist from the prestigious University of Melbourne in Australia. So that is who Gwyneth Isaacs is, and she lives in a mud brick house on a farm in the middle of nowhere, off-grid. And that is Gwyneth Isaacs. So I just wanted to share that with you. I got an email from one of our instructors. Family member had a stroke. And this instructor asked me, he said that, by the way, Alex, we are offline on streaming, and I'm not sure why that is, so I thought I'd mention that to you. We just went offline according to a call we just got in to the farmhouse. But one of our instructors asked, how does a stroke vary? The frontal lobe, the left side, the right side, the stem of the brain, different areas. How does a stroke vary?
Well, I mean, it can vary all over the place. I mean, any part of the brain or all parts of the brain can be affected. So, you know, it depends on what the cause is and how serious the damage is.
So are we saying that a stroke is some plaque that kind of flakes off in the circulatory system and causes a blockage?
Well, that's one. It can be a plaque breaking off. It can be a closure of the arteries. It can a rupture of the arteries. Or it can be a bruise to the brain.
Okay. Is high blood pressure something that can cause a stroke?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And at what blood pressure should someone be concerned about having a stroke? When it gets to what?
Well, anything above 150 over 90 increases the risk of stroke. And the higher it gets, the greater the risk.
Okay. All right. And is after a stroke, And when a person goes to rehab, how does a person start rebuilding the brain pattern they used to have and the brain trails that they used to have? How does a person start regaining what they lost? What would you recommend?
Well, physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy, all of those are significant contributions to recovering after any kind of major brain injury.
And so do you have to rewire your brain? I mean, is that really what we're doing? We're saying, okay, this part...
It can happen. That is, the brain does form new pathways, new connections, and even new neurons if you're reasonably healthy.
Okay. And supplements? Are there supplements that you recommend?
Well, I think all people in today's world need extra vitamin B complex, extra vitamin D, extra vitamin C, and astaxanthin. Those are sort of the foundations for keeping yourself healthy.
Okay. Is there anything else that a person should do? Is there a specific diet that a person should try to follow or avoid?
Yeah, avoid sugar, avoid potatoes, avoid wheat.
That's white potatoes, right?
Yeah, sweet potatoes are excellent, but not white potatoes. That's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So avoid wheat, avoid sugar. So that means no pasta, no pizza?
That is
no
correct.
Bread?
No bread.
How about salad dressing? Any concerns about the oils in salad dressing?
Not at all. I mean, of course you want to make it out of good old avocado oil or virgin olive oil, but other than that, that's good for you.
Okay. And do you have a preference? I keep avocado oil on the counter so that I use it. That's my first choice. Extra virgin olive oil seems to be my second choice lately. Is that the correct order, or would you reverse that?
I think it's probably correct, yes.
Okay. And is there a way that or a plan to rebuild, rewire, or go around the damaged areas of the brain and of the muscles caused by a stroke?
Well, again, just a basic good diet is all that I know. Now, there's no question that there's certain so-called nootropics, but the evidence for them in increasing recovery from a stroke is not good enough that I can make any big recommendations there.
Okay.
The most important thing is keep healthy.
Okay. And another question is, what about the psyche? So, for example, let's say a person today walked fine, then they had a stroke and they need to use a walker or a cane, and now that person thinks, boy, people are looking at me like I'm incapacitated, and boy, everybody's looking at me. When we come back, can you tell us how a person could deal with one day not being handicapped, the next day being handicapped? The mental image one has of him or herself. How can that be improved? Dr. Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norm Shealy. We're continuing on with the question that I received from one of our instructors. Family member had a stroke, pretty serious, and after being discharged from the hospital and going into rehab, a skilled rehab center, this person is experiencing, well, she's different. And as she's different, she notices that people look at her and she's thinking that, geez, they see me with a walker or a wheelchair or a cane or whatever it may be, that she didn't need, a few weeks ago. But now she needs that. And is there a way of dealing with that mentally, Dr. Shealy?
Well, everything. If you cannot change something, detach. Mm-hmm. And, of course, autogenetic training is my favorite way of training yourself to detach from things you cannot change. I mean, after all, 2.5 years, a bit over 2.5 years ago now, I wound up with 50% paralyzed left foot, 90% numb, and I've dealt with it for 2.5 years, mainly by just not paying attention to it and not worrying about what other people think.
Mm-hmm. And so this lady is experiencing this, and then so is Sonny Skidmore, an owner of KLID AM 1340 in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. She was in an automobile accident, ended up having both of her legs amputated above the knee, and of course now she's going to be experiencing some of what we just mentioned, because she'll be in a wheelchair for a while, and I guess until she's fitted with prostheses for her legs, she's going to be in a wheelchair and learning how to get around. And she's 90, so she's got a tough road ahead of her. And same thing, autogenic training for her too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good for everybody and everything.
And just to mention, I'm not saying this out of school. I asked her if she wanted me to, mention this to you on the air, and I don't know if she had reached you yet. She is trying to call you. She's now in another facility, and I don't know if the phone is connected.
I've not heard from her.
Okay. I'm sure she will call you, but I'm sure she's really busy with
surviving.
Yes. Also, this communique that I received today about the stroke. What about how important is it to rebuild muscle? Meaning, you're in the hospital and you're lying around, and do you lose it quickly if you don't use it?
Well, you know, within a week of being inactive, you've lost a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes a month, you've lost even more. So, the sooner you can start, some kind of minimum muscle activity, the better.
Okay. And what about electronic mind repair tools that are out there? I know that you've got some. Is there one that you recommend? Can they be rented? And so forth. What do you recommend?
Well, my favorite for everything in the brain is the gamma PEMF device.
Okay. The gamma PEMF. And that's available on your website. Is that available for rent as well as...
Well, you can rent them from the clinic. We don't rent them from the mail order business.
Okay. And if it's someone whom, let's say it's an instructor, can that be rented through the mail, someone who you've met in person?
Well, again, we don't rent them through the mail order business, only at the clinic.
Okay. So a person would have to come in?
We'd have to at least have a phone consultation, yes.
Okay. That would make it easy, because some of our instructors are scattered throughout the country.
Universe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we've got one that's right outside right on the edge of the galaxy. Yes. All right. I think that's answered those questions. I had a question for you. We're talking with Gwyneth Isaacs. She absolutely is convinced she knows exactly who she was in a past life. And you know who you were. And when you did a past life regression with me, I was just a farmer who was trying to rally the local farmers in our village to resist the oppression coming our way. The burning, the pillaging, the looting, the destruction. Almost like it seemed like Sherman was on his way, but I don't know if it was Sherman, but it sure seemed like Sherman's scorched earth policy was coming to our village, because it was 4 villages away, then 3, and it was coming our way. And I was trying to rally the neighbors, the village farmers, to resist. And I couldn't do it. I was an absolute failure. They walked out on me. And I kind of feel the same way about being on the radio. I'm having very little success getting people to prepare, even though I keep trying and trying. We all do. All of us at USA Prepares, we keep trying, but I think the success rate is far lower than we'd like. What I'm saying is, it seems like I am the same person as in my past life regression, and different method. I'm not behind the trees with a musket or or a gun or a rifle or whatever it might be. I'm just trying to get everybody, to pay attention, and I'm unable to do that. So I can see that there is a link between my past life and my current life. And you have found that there's links too, and so has Gwyneth. But I don't know who I was. I don't know if I was Farmer Jones or Farmer Smith. I don't know. How is it that you know and Gwyneth knows exactly who you were? How did you determine that?
Well, my immediate past life came to me quite spontaneously when I actually heard the name. I just knew. And it turned out that has been confirmed by half a dozen excellent intuitive people, as well as when I visited London to search the details, I found the building where I actually worked and knew every room in the building.
Okay, so you were able to just walk through the building knowing your way, never having, Okay. Quite fascinating, Dr. Shealy. It really is. Okay, well, I haven't figured that out yet, who I was. I don't think I was anybody special. I just think I was just a farmer. I don't see myself as a general or a lieutenant or, vice president of anything. Just some farmer with some hand tools. Okay. Let's see. We talked about the epileptic seizures and past life, and we talked about the addiction. Quite fascinating. The 50% of people are addicted to one thing or another or multiple things simultaneously. What are your concerns about that, Dr. Shealy, as you walk through town or drive in your vehicle? Are you concerned?
You got to be alert yourself to everything, because it means that 50% of the people you run into are in a car or on a sidewalk or in a building are not thinking normal. You can't think normal if you're addicted to anything.
Right. And that's one of my greatest concerns, that as I travel through, around the city streets or so, that somebody's going to run into me because they're just addicted to something, or addicted even to a text, reading a text or checking for text or texting on their cell phone or watching a movie while they're driving on their phone. I mean, it's ridiculous what people are doing. Talking is probably even though people are zoned out when they're on their phones and they don't remember where they've been or how they even got there while they're driving. Well, maybe they're not driving; they're just behind the wheel while they're on the phone. It's really frightening to me that this hasn't been stopped cold in its tracks. I received an email, Dr. Shealy. Let's see if I can magnify this a little bit. Okay. I received an email from one of our class. And I'd like to read this, and it's quite interesting, and I'd love to hear your comments. It says, I was thinking about your recent broadcast on my walk this morning. As were you, I was raised Roman Catholic. One of the teachings was that the body was the temple of the Holy Spirit and in the perfect image of God. We are all different. Some are more intelligent, attractive, etc. The most important aspect of our being is the soul and how it reflects our spirituality or lack thereof. Some of the alterations people make to the physical being reach the state of self-mutilation. What's going on with their psyche makes them feel the need to do this to themselves. Or what is going on that makes them feel the need to do this to themselves? Besides being reckless, what's going on with their soul and their perception of reality? I saw a picture of a man, heavily tattooed, that had his tongue cut in half like a serpent. He truly did look demonic. To some degree, it's a reflection of what's occurring in our world, society today, in my opinion. There's good reason to be alarmed. In general, most of us attempt to reach an optimum state of equilibrium, i.e. the right amount of sleep, to feel rested, the appropriate amount of food, to be nourished, the optimal optimum pH level, etc. As in nature, when this does not happen, behaviors tend to become more skewed and often destructive toward ourselves or others. And people tend to seek out for that which helps us return to that balance. I suspect the extreme behaviors are a reflection of how out of balance our society, even us to some degree, have become, because we're all affected, impacted by it to some degree. There are many reasons for this. In addition, the propaganda we're exposed to day in and day out. There are harmful toxins in our environment, food and water, harmful technology, vaccines, GMO, livestock raised in close quarters and given hormones, antibiotics, GMO, and toxic-laced food are just a few examples of potential contributors to how we're affected. In some respects, I think about how our physical and mental states are assaulted in so many ways. I wonder why it isn't worse. Just a few thoughts from my morning walk. And says thank you in the person's name. Dr. Shealy, that sounds about what we talk about all the time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just got I sent you a copy of it. I don't send you, I send out about 4 or more to my group of friends every day. And I don't include you most of them because I know you're overloaded with things. But this one's worth thinking about. It's a reflection on freedom and liberty. And to me, it's worth serious thinking. It refers back to the Israelites when they were freed from slavery in Egypt, and instantly were wondering about going back.
Let's talk about that when we come back from this break. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, your number at your clinic is 417-351-5221. Class, if you'd like to call Dr. Shealy's clinic, make an appointment with him in Springfield, Missouri. That's Central Time Zone, 417-351-5221. That's the same number I call. Dr. Shealy, you're talking about newfound freedom. The Israelites, did you want to continue with...
What the word democracy is charade for criminal politics. It is hard to believe how writers who pretend to oppose big government endear this most deceptive word. They're either part of the system or victims of the system's brainwash. In other words, they perpetuate the deception. Isn't that interesting? When you see or hear anyone use the word democracy implying human liberty, you should suspect treason, whether use is intentional or otherwise. The word in modern use of democracy is the focus of world propaganda. We must be alert to this or risk continued deception. It's all important to recognize code words and phrases that are used by bureaucrats and politicians to manipulate the public mind. I'm speaking now to the American conservative. Today's conservative claims to believe in limited government, constitution, individual responsibility, even individual liberty. In the abstract, any mention of rolling back government to its constitutional parameters is greeted by conservatives with enthusiasm, but when the rubber meets the road, the hedging and waffling starts. One of the great myths of our time is the U.S. is a free market capitalist system. In reality, there is no free market in America and has not been for more than 150 years. A market with regulation and licensing and taxation and incentives and cronyism and laws requiring whom a business may or may not serve is in no way a free market. Well, it goes on. It's a very long thing. I see the whole thing. But basically, he makes the point that this is no different from the Israelites when they escaped from the Egyptian slavery, and they thought they should go back to their chains. Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way? And on and on they go. So this concept of freedom or lack thereof is very interesting and worthy consideration.
Well, Dr. Shealy, you're absolutely right. And as you were saying, I was thinking about, you need to have paid up permission to do so many things. If you want to have a business and earn a living, well, a lot of locations in the United States require a business license. If you want to operate a motor vehicle without being detained on a regular basis, you need a driver's license. in many locations, if you want to have a dog, you need a dog license. And then not only that, your automobile or your truck needs to have permission to be driven, which is called license plates and and tags. So you need to have registration, license plates, tags, driver's license, dog license, business license, license. And you're absolutely right. We are, according to Hillary Clinton, in the United States, if it moves, it's taxed. If it doesn't move, it is regulated. And if you think about it, I keep thinking about the kings. You know, the kings are in Europe, England specifically, 1200, 1300, 1400 AD, and there were constant wars. And the kings would just kind of look out and say, okay, let's go fight them. And yeah, a whole bunch of you all are going to die, but that's okay because we need to go fight them. And by the way, I need X percentage of all of your stuff. And that's taxes. And and I keep thinking about how ruthless these kings were and how they just ruled over people. And whatever the king said, that's what happened. You know, with or without reason. And people would follow them. And those were the minions. And we still have minions. We don't have, well, I guess we do have kings and queens, but they call themselves politicians, but they rule over us. They tell us what's going to be. And if we don't like it, they'll do things like have our driver's license put on suspension for some bogus reason. And then when you get pulled over by the blue team, then they go, you're driving without a approved permit. And you go, wait a minute, I do have one. Well, no, you don't. The system says you don't. So if the system says you don't, you don't. And then you get arrested and hauled off and your car gets towed for some politician saying, oh, let's teach this guy a lesson. Let's pull his driver's license, and we won't tell him. That's the kind of stuff that goes on in the United States, and it's getting worse. So, Dr. Shealy, I think you're absolutely right. We'll be right back with Dr. Shealy right after bottom of the hour news and announcements. Dr. Shealy, there's something that I saw on television. On the television screen, I should say. It was a video that Mrs. Finelli was watching one evening, and I happened to be there and in the room, and it was the most disturbing thing I've seen in a long time. This was a scene where there were two friends, and they worked together, and they were close friends, and one of them was asked by another party to delay the person from showing up at a particular location. Just delay them. And he was found out to have caused this delay. And he was asked in the interrogation room in we'll call it a police department. So let me see if I got this right. You were paid to delay your friend? Well, yeah. So you actually took money to cause harm to your friend by delaying him? Well, yeah, I was offered money. And I'm thinking, there is no amount of money that someone could offer me to sell out a friend. You know, they could say, I'll tell you what, if you could derail this guy for a few hours, we'll give you $1,000. No. 10,000. No. $1 million. No. There's no amount of money that could entice me to sell out a friend. It just couldn't happen with me. But yet, it seems that we're being taught by the big screen that this happens, and yeah, it's okay, because it's for money. Dr. Shealy, what I'm talking about is the disintegration of our values in society, and it's on television like this is a good, normal, reasonable.
The reason I've not turned on television in the last 2 years and have no plans for ever turning on again. I don't like to be
Isn't it awful?
brainwashed by crap.
Yeah. It's an outrage. You know, if you were at my house or someone else were at my house and someone said, I'll tell you what, if you could just keep them there another half hour, you know, we got something planned, and it's not good. Just keep them there and we'll give you $10,000 or $100,000. We do that. Absolutely not. but yet there are people who would.
I can't.
Well, I've been watching with
on the radio. I can't say what I would tell them, but it wouldn't be nice.
Right. I was watching with Mrs. Finelli something that was absolutely riveting, Dr. Shealy, and this is something that if you have not seen and you want to get the DVDs for it, I think it's worth doing. It's a mini-series. I believe it's 5 1-hour or so episodes, and it's one word, Chernobyl. Oh, my gosh. For the first time in my life, I said to Mrs. Finelli, we watched the first episode, and this is the true events of what happened at Chernobyl, the horrors, the radiation poisoning, the flesh falling off the bodies, the political decisions, like who are we going to send to die? 750,000 men were selected to shovel radioactivity out of the melted down reactor in Chernobyl and in the 1980s. And it is absolutely gory, gruesome, and real. And for the very first time in my life, I said to Mrs. Finelli, she said, okay, we watched the second one. One day we watched 1 hour, then the next day we watched another hour. And she said, do you want to watch the third one? I said, no, I can't watch it tonight. We'll do it another night. It's riveting, and it will show exactly what you've been saying. This nuclear power generation system that's all over the world is absolutely beyond crazy. It could be something that takes us out. It is the death that you endure, or succumb to, I guess I should say, from radiation poisoning is horrific. It's like the extreme torture. There's probably not much that man has done that's worse in terms of torture than this, in terms of death by radiation poisoning. So, Dr. Shealy, if you want to see something that will really drive that point home about how dangerous this is, it's called Chernobyl. And I suggest that our class, if you've got the stomach for it, you watch it. It has a little bit of profanity in it. It's not necessary. It has a little bit of nudity in it. And it's a bunch of miners who are tunneling down the failed reactor, and they're nude because it's so hot they can't bear to wear clothes. They can't breathe with the masks on. They're all going to die a horrific death by being sacrificed to prevent a massive, massive explosion which will destroy forever many countries in Europe downwind of the reactor. And to be quite frank about this, everybody is downwind of a nuclear reactor. Everybody. Whether you're in Oregon or Idaho or North Dakota or Pennsylvania or Missouri, we're all downwind of nuclear reactors because of the infinite stupidity of man, greedy men. And those of us who want more stuff, more trinkets, more Christmas presents, more birthday presents, more electronics, and we don't know how to do with less or do without. We haven't figured that out. It's an outrage. And when you watch Chernobyl, it'll make you sick. It will make you angry at someone who leaves their lights on and wastes energy. It will make you sick by thinking about, oh, electric cars, they're clean. Oh, they don't pollute. Really? Wait till you see Chernobyl. Dr. Shealy, any thoughts about what I've just...
Well, I have thought for the last 70-plus years that the most stupid thing humanity ever did was create nuclear energy, and it still hasn't quite yet destroyed us, but someday it could.
Well, it's destroyed people in Minsk.
Ukraine.
Yes, and it is so serious. Here's what's happened at the Hanford plant, where we worked on Hanford, Washington. The radioactivity that we just dumped on the ground during the time we were building the bombs to allegedly end World War II, dropping them on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan. The development of those bombs created a tremendous amount of nuclear waste. And we had stored it in drums, and we seemed to have forgotten about those. And they leaked into the ground. And then plants grew up on that ground. And then rabbits ate the plants. I'm talking about the grasses, squirrels. And when they had rabbit waste and squirrel waste and bird poop, all of these animals eating through the food chain on the Hanford Reservation, their poop and their pee spread the radioactivity farther and farther and farther outward. And that's what happens. Well, to mitigate some of that at Chernobyl, they sent out guys with rifles. And they said, well, we've evacuated the area, but we have some pets. We've got some cats, puppies, dogs, and wild animals. They all have to be killed. And so they gave rifles to the military, and their job was to just kill anything that moved. People will get them out. But anything else that moves, kill them. And then grab the carcass, throw it in a truck. We'll dig a big pit. We'll throw them all in this pit, and then we'll cover it with concrete. And the workers who worked on on trying to stop the fires, or the firemen who put out the fires initially at Chernobyl, they died this horrific death. And if you even touched them, you would become sick with radioactivity and probably die as well. Those firemen were put in coffins that were welded shut. And then the coffins were laid in a deep ditch and covered with concrete. They poured concrete around them, and there's no getting those guys out.
And 10 years later, the children in the Ukraine, in Kiev, were all suffering from low thyroid, among other things. 6 miles away.
Uh-huh. And we can talk a little bit more about this, how horrific this was. I
visited Kiev in 1995, and that was, they were still talking about and dealing with the tragedy there 9 years later. And interestingly, Ukraine had been nothing but a problem. Politically, it didn't seem to be that much of a problem before then, but it has deteriorated significantly and continuously, I think, since then.
In 1979, actually March of 1979, the most significant nuclear event, which they called an accident, happened at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. And there was a nuclear generating station there. And they said it had a small problem. It actually melted down. And I remember the television reports because we were near there. Not really close, and I remember the news reports, well, it's okay. It's just steam. They're only venting steam. It's okay. It was radioactive steam. And there were downwinders of that. And the television reporters should all be shot because those morons reported that it was okay to go outside. And people downwind of this nuclear meltdown. And they were told, it's not a meltdown. It's not a meltdown. No. It's just steam. It's okay. Water vapor steam. It was radioactive steam. The downwinders, 10 years later, I saw them being interviewed. And there was this one little village where every house had cancer. Every single one. And the dandelion leaves on the front lawn, on camera, a guy took one. The dandelion leaf reached from the tip of his finger with his outstretched arm to his shoulder. We're talking about dandelion leaves, which are only, 3 inches long, 4 inches long at the most. These are 3 feet long. Everybody had cancer. Skin cancer, liver cancer, every kind of cancer you could possibly think of, leukemia. Every house had at least one person in it with cancer. And we were told it's okay. It's okay. Same thing happened at Chernobyl. Oh, no, it's just a fire on the roof. There's nothing to worry about. And 750,000 soldiers.
Sucks.
Dr. Shealy is an author of well over 30 books. He gives seminars, workshops throughout the country. He is a Surgeon of the Year and my dear friend, as well as a farmer. And Dr. Shealy, David in Illinois is calling in. He's with us right now. He was in the crosshairs of John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy attempted to kidnap David in Illinois, who is a USA Prepares instructor, has a wealth of information, never ceases to amaze me time after time after time. And he's calling right now about Chernobyl. Welcome, David.
Yeah, I've been waiting to see you get on this subject. Do you realize that the firemen's uniforms are still in that hospital basement, and they're so contaminated? But there's a lot more that they could not put in that docuseries that you can go to YouTube or podcast, and they will tell you the things that were even – it's horrific in the first place, but there's a lot worse that they just could not put on the screen. It was that bad.
David, would you say that did I exaggerate in any way, shape, or form when I described?
Well, I can't hear you too well because I couldn't hear what you said earlier because my internet's been going out after Gwyneth went on because I've been trying to call, so I'm surprised I can get through now. Yeah, it's bad. It is. I think they should show it in all the schools. I think these kids need to be aware because when I was a child, teenager, I told you about the University of Chicago having nuclear contamination in the buildings. I didn't know the side effects of it until my senior year in high school in the independent living, and they put that movie on the day after, and it's based on your area in Missouri. I'm surprised you didn't have. I'm surprised you haven't seen it. Granted, it was a nuclear, conflict that happens here, but it's a similar thing. And they show you life before and after, and I really think people should go look at that alone. But yeah, it's bad. It's. I don't know how you would. I don't even know what you would do in a situation like that. And here's another thing that I was going to try to call you to talk to you about. One of Trump's representatives that just resigned, he's going back to Texas. In his interview the other day, he said he has a big problem to deal with in his state of cooling issues, that they're having issues right now with them plants. It's getting to be a crisis. I've never heard of that before. He briefly mentioned it the other day in his interview, why he's one of the other reasons he's leaving.
All right, so let's talk about this for just a second. And I have noticed this in a different way. I have noticed that vehicles today are having a real tough time keeping their engines cool. And it's because of the delta. And that's the term I'm using, delta meaning the difference between one thing and another. So if you have outdoor temperatures of 95 or 100 degrees, and you're cooling off, trying to cool off the engine under the hood that was designed to once in a while hit 95 degrees, but not consistently or often hit 95 degrees, we are running against the inability to cool. We're running against air conditioning having tough times cooling buildings because it's getting hotter, and they weren't designed to operate at the ambient temperature that we're seeing outside. So what we're saying is you're taking 95-degree air, and you're trying to cool with air that's hot. So with it, you're trying to dump the heat from a car radiator into 95-degree air. It's hard to do that. It's real easy when the air outside is 40, 50, 60 degrees. But when it's 95, it's very difficult. And I have a feeling what you're saying is that the cooling towers for nuclear reactors are using air to cool, air and water to cool the nuclear reactor. And there is not the capacity to absorb that number of BTUs of heat from the reactor. So when people think about nuclear energy being clean, they've lost their minds. There's nothing clean about it. The half-life is in the thousands and thousands, like hundreds of thousands of years in some instances. So it never goes away. Never.
Well, even the 3 Mile Island one, that other plant is still contaminated. They're waiting until the other plant next to it goes offline, and then they're going to clean the rest of it up. What if it somehow gets exposed?
What you saw in this series, Chernobyl, is guys were in a highly radioactive area, and they were going to die very soon, like within a day or two or three. And the radioactivity was so great that the flashlights, I'm talking about a plain old incandescent bulb, batteries in a flashlight, they started to fail. The computer-controlled robots would not operate because the radiation beat up the electronics. We don't have electronics nor mechanisms that can withstand the radiation. It beats up everything in its sight. And in the video it said, anything more sophisticated than a light switch will not work. Did you see that, David?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
David, thank you for calling. I appreciate all of your insight. Dr. Shealy, thank you for ringing the alarm worldwide, on what's wrong with what we're doing. We've got to stop this radioactivity. We've got to.